it's not sexy, but it's true. So I think routine is the foundation of everything. I even notice with myself, if I fall out of routine, everything does slip.
A fit and strong body can never be bought, neither can a calm mind. It has to be earned.
Why would I work harder to make someone else more money when I'm not getting any upside from that at all?
A good body or a good physique is a sign of discipline. Like on the evolutionary basis, it is a sign of discipline, hard work, and therefore that's what we're drawn to.
It's about deciding where you want to turn up or down the dial in your life right now.
Joe.
Good morning.
What does hybrid training actually mean?
Oh God, here we go. Well, I think there's a lot of different definitions, but I think the way that I define it is balancing strength training and endurance training to some degree. Now, obviously that's quite a wide spectrum. So you might have someone that is more bodybuilding focused. They might do 4 or 5 strength sessions a week, and they might literally just do one run or one cycle. And then you might have someone at the other end of the spectrum that is more endurance focused, that literally just has strength training in their routine to actually complement the endurance training. I would say I lie kind of somewhere in the middle, a nice balance of running and strength training. That's what I would say about it.
So there is no set definition for exactly what it is, but it's a bit of a blend.
Yeah.
What would you say is the importance of hybrid training?
I think there probably is a definition. I think people like to throw like different things around it, but I do call it hybrid training because that's like the trend in the industry at the moment. But I just think it's personally like the way you should train. I think you should do strength training. I think you should do mobility training. I think you should do cardio just because I think that's like overall fitness rather than just focusing on one. But what do you say? The importance of it, I think just now, more than ever coming out of COVID, people are realizing the importance of cardiovascular health alongside not just looking good. And like personally for me, I would never want to be the guy that looks amazing but can't move sideways, can't run for 10 minutes without being out of breath and like super unfit. So I think for me, I just kind of fell into it. I've been doing it. I've been running for like over 5 years. So I've been doing it before it kind of became trendy, just because I like to do that. I like to lift weights and I also like running. I think because I played rugby when I was younger, but I kind of fell out the cardio side of things at uni. And then I started running just before lockdown and just kind of picked it up. But I never wanted to sacrifice the way I looked. So I just kind of kept them both up together. And I've just learned a lot about it over the last 4.5 years, whatever it is, and figured out, how to get the most out of both. And I think it's definitely important to say that you're not going to look your absolute best if you're running 3 or 4 times a week. I think that's fairly fair to say. But I think you can look amazing whilst running or doing some other sort of endurance discipline. So I really think it comes down to what you want out of it. But I think most people these days, apart from people that are, prepping for photo shoots and bodybuilding, they just want to look good. They want to feel amazing. They want to feel fit. They want to be strong for their families and their kids and things like that. So that's kind of the way that we go about it, I would say.
So when you first started your journey into sports, fitness, exercise, was that really like early on or did it develop throughout your years?
I played rugby since I was 6. So I played for a club in Newcastle. And I think at school, we probably would have started playing rugby around the same time as well. So just loads of rugby, like 6 or 7 times a week from a young age. I actually got into the gym because I did my ACL, which is like a cruciate ligament in your knee. So that kind of pushed me into the gym. But I had actually started doing a little bit of strength training before that, just because if you wanted to get better at rugby, it goes without saying getting stronger and getting a little bit fitter in the gym was going to help you. So I actually started strength training when I was 14. I started off with like bodyweight circuits, some ab training with my dad because he was quite into it, and then progressed into the weight room and then literally got hooked with it really from the age of, I would say 14 and a half. And then I kept rugby up until I went to uni. But I just stopped playing rugby at uni because I just wanted to focus more on the gym, to be honest. And I was quite injury prone, always picked up niggles and things like that. And I was never good enough to like take it professional or anything like that. So I just focused on the gym, but fell out with the cardio just because, I don't know, we were at uni, we were going out and stuff. And I just wanted to solely focus on the way I looked. But I think obviously being natural, like once you've strength trained for 8 to 10 years consistently, there's only so much kind of progress you can make without doing a huge gaining phase. So I just found that I wanted to go into some sort of endurance training as well and balance them both well.
That's very interesting because a lot of people can get caught in the cycles of they want to get bigger, but they want to be lean. And that's where they kind of end up following the bodybuilding style approach. Did it get to a point where you thought, I'm relatively satisfied with my physique? Because you look the same like 365 days a year. Like you always just look in great condition and you've got a good amount of muscularity. So did it get to a point where you're like, I'm actually quite happy to maintain this?
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's a whole different conversation, but I think people that want to get absolutely huge, I think unless they're really going down the bodybuilding route, I think there's probably some insecurity there. Maybe I think for guys, but personally, I never felt like that. I love training. I always really enjoyed weight training. I was obsessed with like Rocky and the movies like that. Never really did it to kind of please anyone else. I just really enjoyed the process, and obviously did build a decent amount of muscle for a natural over the first few years. But personally, I never wanted to be huge, so I never did loads of gaining phases. But I'm relatively strong, so I'm able to kind of maintain that like lean and athletic physique year round. But it does take a lot of work, definitely. I can't even remember what your question was, but I think I'm fairly happy with my size. I probably want to put on a couple of kilos more muscle over the next couple of years, which I think is doable. But yeah, I've got no ambitions to be like massive. I just want to be well-rounded and be able to, squat double my body weight, deadlift 4 plate for reps, but then go and run a 40-minute 10K the next day without having to, train for it properly.
This is something that maybe if someone doesn't know the feeling of what it's like to go and run a 40-minute 10K, I can't wait to know that feeling one day, whether that be possible. But if you don't know that feeling, it can be really difficult to know that you'd be able to find joy in that. And so instead, a lot of men, and it's been spoken about a little bit more now, the male body dysmorphia, where they're constantly thinking that they're smaller than what they actually are, and they're constantly wanting to build more size. However, you found the joy through actually knowing what it feels like to be able to be fit and healthy and run fast. Did you ever struggle with any of that, the male body dysmorphia?
Yeah, I think I do now, to be honest, and I think it would be wrong to say that I don't, and I think everyone does to some extent. But for me, it's not really the size. I think it's more the leanness. Like I'll look at myself in a mirror and not think I'm lean, but then when I do a shoot with a videographer, I'm like, fuck, like I'm actually like probably 11% right now. I look really lean. But I think when people say body dysmorphia, they think it's like this like terrible, crippling mental like illness or something. It's like, I think as fitness coaches, there's a lot of pressure on us to be in shape year round. And I think as a fitness coach, you should be. I believe very strongly with that. But yeah, I think so, but it's more conditioned for me. I don't want to see myself go out of shape because like my brand is called athletic aesthetic. So to me, if I don't look athletic, then I feel like I'm a bit of a fraud. But I don't struggle with it. Like I've got a really good relationship with food. I don't overtrain or anything like that. Like I feel like I've got a good balance, but I don't know if it's wrong to say, but I like having maybe a little bit of body dysmorphia because it keeps me in good condition and it keeps my standards high, I would say.
Yeah, when you've got to lead by example, lead from the front, you have a certain standard to maintain. But to someone who maybe will go on your Instagram profile, have a look at how you look, what does it actually take to maintain your body composition? Like what do you do day to day to maintain how you look?
I mean, to me, I find it, I wouldn't say easy because, I still train for, 6-7 hours a week. So it's not easy by any standards, but the habits are so ingrained now that it's very easy for me to just, maintain the way I look. But, consistently hitting 12,000 steps on a daily basis over a few walks throughout the day. But I enjoy doing things like that. I like eating a healthy diet. Like, me and James talk about it all the time. I think the people that stay in shape year round, they do have a good relationship with food. Like I choose to eat the foods I eat because I enjoy them. And I know obviously they fit my macros and they serve my goals. But if I want to have a pizza, I'm going to go and have a pizza. Like I'll probably have a pizza tomorrow night, but it will fit in my macros. If it goes slightly over calories, I'm not going to worry about it. I might just go a little bit lower calories the next day. But I think obviously you do have to be disciplined, just like we're disciplined with our work. You do have to be disciplined with your diet. Like I probably would eat more chocolate if I didn't need to stay in shape year round, but I choose not to because like it doesn't really align with my values and where I want to take my business. But it's a lot of work, definitely. It sounds cliche and it's boring, but it just all comes down to routine. And that's what I think we preach in our programs is you cannot get into shape and stay in shape unless you have a solid routine, because maybe at uni when you weren't busy, you could do that. But when you have, a stressful 8 till 6 job, sometimes longer hours, you've got maybe a relationship, maybe kids as well, you do have to be regimented. And yeah, it's not sexy, but it's true. So I think routine is the foundation of everything. And I even notice with myself, if I fall out of routine, everything does slip. My nutrition's not as good. So like if I haven't done my food shop, I'm probably going to find myself ordering, maybe more processed food and things like that. So routines are the key of everything. But it's easy for me to maintain because I know how I've done it. Like I've trained for 14 years. But to someone who doesn't train, to try and adopt this lifestyle, they'd find it very, very stressful. Like there's very few people that will come onto our program who are new that adopt everything straight away. like often the people we coach are coming from a background of working with other coaches or having done it themselves, so that it's more of like an upgrade and optimizing things. But yeah, it's a lot of work. I'd be wrong if I said that wasn't the way it is.
Yeah. And you mentioned the word discipline, which is something that can be quite difficult for someone maybe who's at the beginning of their stage to understand. Okay, well, is discipline just willpower? But from my perspective, discipline is like a harmony of different things. Like, as you said, you've got to have the structure, the environment, and less friction to doing the things that you know are going to serve you. Because you and I both know, like, if we go and pelt a run for 45 minutes to an hour, maybe we could burn somewhere between, 500 to 700 calories. But if we slip and fall on a couple of Krispy Kremes in an instant, that's it. So when we're talking about discipline, is that something that you had to learn, or that you've always perhaps had from other sports like rugby when you were younger?
I think just, I think because I've literally trained for so long, and because I was consistently playing sport from like the age of 6 or 7, I've not known what it's like to not train that consistently. Like, it's just a part of my routine, and I know what it does for me. It makes me feel good. It makes me a better partner, a better team leader, a better CEO, whatever you want to say. So I know that if I stopped training or if I started eating shit, it would affect every other aspect of my life. Like, I would say my discipline with nutrition isn't necessarily to stay in condition. It's probably because, like, I know I'm going to feel like shit if I go and eat loads of Krispy Kremes. Like, that's going to make me crash, and I'm not going to be able to do my check-ins well. And I'm not going to give good quality check-ins to my clients. And like, I've heard other, like Mike talk about that as well. Like, the reason I don't eat that sort of food is because it makes me, I know how it makes me feel after. And it's a temporary, like, dopamine spike, isn't it? Like, the Krispy Kreme is going to taste amazing, but after, I'm not going to feel good. So I think if you are to eat those things, like for me, it would be on a Friday night where I'm not trying to do work after, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what the original question is, but I think discipline just comes from doing it for a long amount of time and getting used to doing it and understanding what you're working towards as well. Like, for me, I do want to stay in shape, and I do want to lead by example to my team and my clients as well. So me going and fucking it and eating a pizza 7 days in a row and getting out of shape, like, how can I tell one of my coaches to stay in shape if I'm not doing it? Do you know? And my clients as well, like, how can I say train 5 times, it's not acceptable to miss a workout if I'm not doing that as well? I just feel like a fraud. And there are other coaches that they do tell their clients to do things that they're not doing, because we all know it. We know who those people are, but that doesn't sit well with me personally.
Yeah. You've got a track record of evidence of, over these few years, absolutely just skyrocketing your performance. So just so that people can have maybe some understanding for, certain achievements that you've had with regard to, let's say, hybrid training or just your performance as an athlete, what have you achieved?
Yeah, this is what I was going to say before as well. I think it's important to understand, if you are going to hybrid train, whatever you want to call it, if you are going to combine strength, bodybuilding, endurance training, you're never going to be the best at one of them. And I think that's what you need to understand. But we do it because we love it. And I know I'm never going to run a sub 15-minute 5K. I'm too heavy to do it. It's probably not possible. And equally, I'm never going to step on a bodybuilding stage and win, because I'm doing loads of running, which is fatiguing. But I think, like, I'm quite proud of, like, the achievements I've achieved in my running. And the way I see it is, like, I've been lifting for 14 years, but I've been running for about 5. So I can progress more in my running now. I've done a sub 130 half marathon. I've only actually done one marathon. I did it in 3:22, and it wasn't a race environment. I just went and did one because I was actually coaching someone to a marathon, because obviously I understand the theory of how to coach that, but I'd never actually run the distance myself. So I was like, this also doesn't sit well with me. So I just went and did one. Like, I built my long runs up for 3 weeks and went and ran it. And I think I could definitely go a lot faster than that. But that's something we can get onto, like prepping for a marathon is a whole different ball game. But I've done a 5K in 18:26, and I've done a 10K in bang on 40 minutes as well. And I'd be looking to probably improve all of those over the next few years, definitely.
That is speedy as hell.
I think it's good. It's certainly good for someone that lifts a lot of weights and is almost 80 kilos. Like, for a runner that's 65 kilos, they're not respectable times, but I'm okay with that, because personally, like, I always say, like, I don't want to look like a runner. I never want to look like a runner. I want to always have a good amount of muscle mass, definitely.
So if someone is listening to this and they're, idolizing you, you're in great shape, you've got abs all year round and you can run fast for your body weight. If they are completely starting from scratch, they maybe know that they need to lose a few pounds. They know that they need to get more consistent in the gym, but ultimately their end goal, their vision is to get to a position where you are. Where do they even start?
I mean, is that assuming that they come from a background of some strength training, would you say?
Let's say they've gone to the gym intermittently, they kind of know their way around it, they know how to
Yeah.
lift weights, but they've never necessarily been consistent for long periods of time.
Well, I think most people are busy. So I would say the first thing you need to decide and be realistic with is how many times per week can you realistically consistently train? That's something we'll always ask someone if they come on board with us on a sales call and when they actually sign up as well. And often people, you know, they're excited when they join a program. They'll be like, I can train every day. I'm like, no, like what can you actually do when work's busy? So that'd be the first thing. So if someone said they could train 5 days a week, weights and running, I would say if you want a balance of both and you want to progress in both, I think a good split would be a 3 and a 2. So 3 strength sessions, maybe something like a lower body, upper body, full body, so that you get exposure to each of the major muscle groups twice per week. So that's going to allow you to build a good amount of muscle mass. And then running wise, assuming that you're quite new to it, I would not start with any more than 2 a week. And I would leave at least 2 rest days in between. And I would literally focus on running, looking at your heart rate and running for time. Actually made like quite a lot of Instagram content about it. I would probably start with 2 20-minute easy runs, trying to run in an aerobic heart rate zone. So an easy way to calculate that would be take your age away from 180 and you should try and keep your heart rate below that at all times on the run. So for me, 27, I'd try and keep my heart rate below 153. And then what you could do over time is, assuming that you're not picking up injuries or anything like that, just build that volume up with the running, maybe increase those 20 to 22, 25. And over time, before you know it, you'll be probably doing 2 40-minute runs per week. And there's kind of a golden rule with running. You shouldn't really increase your weekly volume by more than 10% unless you're quite a conditioned athlete. Like I could do that, I'd probably be okay. But for beginners, whenever they get injuries, I see that they do too much too soon, too quickly. So they'll run back-to-back days. One day they'll do 20, then they'll do 30. They might do 10K one week. Then the next thing you know, they're doing a half marathon next week and then they get shin splints. Like it obviously doesn't happen for everyone, but that's what we've seen. And strength training wise, obviously you want to progressively overload as long as you can before you start changing exercise variations and things like that. But with running, just slowly increase the volume for 3 weeks and every 4th week, just pull back a little bit. So if you built up to 230s, let's pull it back to 220s in week 4. And then let's build again, just to give your legs a little bit of a break. And that's what I'd recommend doing.
So would you expect to see linear progression with both the running and both strength development if you're doing everything correctly?
I think it depends on the context of the person. I think if you had someone that had like a big strength training or bodybuilding background and they suddenly started running, I think it's unrealistic to expect that person to be able to progress in the gym at the same rate that they were before. But most people aren't doing that. It's usually if someone comes onto our program, even if they've been strength training for years, they're probably not progressing as much as they could. They're probably not being meticulous with tracking their weights. Their nutrition's probably not as good as it could be. Let's look at their sleep as well. How's their stress at work? Then if you add running into the mix, when everything else is optimized, I think you should be able to progress in both, definitely, because there's very few people that have mastered all those things outside of the gym before. And that's what I think a lot of people don't think about. I think people are too black and white. It's too much of a blanket statement to say you can't progress with strength training and running. It's like, we haven't even looked at your training quality in the gym. We don't know what your diet is like. Are you actually getting enough carbs in to support the amount of training that you're doing? Are you recovering? Are you tracking your sleep? All these sort of things.
It's an interesting one when you throw physique development into the mix though, because let's say there's 2 individuals. We've got person A who wants to actually lose quite a substantial amount of body fat to get, visibly lean. And person B wants to keep up their cardiovascular fitness to get better at their running, but they actually really do want to stack on maybe a little bit more size and they want to get stronger. So if they're trying to do this hybrid approach and they've got these, desires on the either end of the physique development spectrum, how should they approach their training?
I think this is super interesting. I think it's something that I've experimented with a lot with myself, and I think I can speak from a lot of experience. So you can definitely get into better shape, build muscle, and do a photo shoot running. I've done that myself. Like my first photo shoot I did about 1.5 years ago, and I was running 40K a week, which is a lot. That's a lot of time on the feet. And you've got to remember that running is a fatiguing activity, especially if you're doing speed work. If you're getting your heart rate into the high 160s, 170s, and you're keeping it there, you're releasing a lot of cortisol, which is stressful. It can lead to water retention. So from a condition standpoint with a photo shoot or bodybuilding prep, there'd be a lot of kind of weight to say you shouldn't run. And I agree with that. If I was ever going to do like a natural bodybuilding competition, I would not run. It wouldn't be optimal. But again, you've got to understand who you're working with, who you're dealing with. Most people like running because most people want to run because they actually enjoy it. So I think we have to take that into account too. But I would say if you really wanted to focus on your on your condition and your body composition, you're probably better off doing lower intensity runs, which is actually what I'm doing at the moment. Like, I want to put on a bit of muscle at the moment. I've not really got any ambitions to run crazy times with my running. So I'm just focusing on lower intensity runs because I'm not going to release as much cortisol, which is not going to inhibit my testosterone, which is then going to help me build muscle. So I think going back to what you were saying, I think if someone was wanting to do both, they should focus on the lower intensity runs if they're wanting to improve their condition. But I think you've just got to monitor it. Like, I could do one speed session a week, get my heart rate up there, I'd be okay. But for someone else, that's going to be very, very fatiguing, especially women as well. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I, my most recent photo shoot prep that I did, it was when I transitioned into this hybrid style of training. And I remember saying to you, I was just like, I just look at my photos every single week and I can see that I'm getting smaller, but there seems to just be like this film of like water, like over my muscle definition. Like I was just retaining so much more water. I felt puffy. And particularly in the environment, you know, that we're running in here in Dubai, there's only very few months in the year where you can wake up at a reasonable time after a high quality of 8 hours sleep, unless you're going to bed at 8 p.m. To then get up and go and do that run. But even so, there is so much more that comes with the running when it comes to the recovery aspect that a lot of people neglect. And maybe someone who's listening to this and they think, okay, maybe I can incorporate a couple of runs, I can do my strength training. Do you think that they might be missing the element of how they can cross-translate some of the strength work that they're doing to complement their running?
Definitely. I think you've got to understand, again, who you're working with and what their real goal is. But I think, you know, again, like as fitness coaches, like we're more hyper aware of how we look. Like have you competed before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know everything about that. You know about water retention. You know what you look like. Like if I looked at those photos of you, I probably wouldn't notice you were holding water. Like it's actually quite interesting is my second photo shoot I did in March earlier this year. And I was actually like forced not to run because I got an injury. So I was literally running less than 10K a week, which was way less than I've ran in the last 5 years. And like my condition was unbelievable. Like I just look harder because when you run, you're going to deplete your glycogen stores and you really need to be meticulous with your carb intake to replenish those. And I think a lot of people aren't consuming enough carbs for the amount of training and running that they're doing. So I think, yeah, I definitely look better when I was doing less running, but it's obviously a sliding spectrum, isn't it? Like no one would probably really notice much difference in my condition in the two photo shoots apart from like a coach. So I think it really, really depends. And for the average person wanting to get in shape, I think it's a great way to do it. I think combining both is fantastic. But what you said before as well, you can use your strength training to complement your running as well. Because again, I've seen a lot of people that have come from a bodybuilding background, like they've not done a unilateral leg work movement in 3 years. And then they start to run and they get injuries because they've not got the relative strength in their hips to support the amount of muscle that they're running around with. So like my favorite like program to write at the moment would be someone who's wanting to improve their physique, functional bodybuilding and run as well, because you can manipulate a lot of your strength work to complement your running. You know, let's do a lot of unilateral leg work. Let's do some rotations in your deadlifts and things like that to actually build a lot of strength in the hips. And like, you've got to look at the lower limb as well. Most people's calves are relatively weak, including mine. So you need to put work into there as well. And like, I would just not stay away from something like a leg press, but you've got to understand there's not much functional carryover to running. You're better off doing something like a walking lunge or a dumbbell split squat or something like that. Something that's going to help you build stability in the joints. And like a common one's runner's knee. And like, not to generalize, but that usually comes up because you've got a relative imbalance or weakness in the hip. So we need to actually be training your glutes. And yeah, you know, you can do hip thrusts and things like that, but from a functional standpoint, you're better off doing something that's less unstable, like a split squat, a reverse lunge and things like that. Like that's actually why I got injured, because my left hip wasn't strong enough to support the 50K that I was doing. So I had to go back to the weight room, work on that. And then it was injury free within a month.
You speak incredibly knowledgeably about all of this running, training and all this information. How did you learn all of this?
I think just, I did a lot of research myself, like literally from 14 to, I still watch YouTube every day now. Like I don't really, unless I'm with Misha, like we'll watch Netflix, but I'll just watch YouTube and it's just education, listening to podcasts. So yeah, I learned a lot of what I know off YouTube. But then the first gym that I worked at was a functional exercise clinic in Newcastle. So it was like high-end personal training for corporate people, but we also helped rehabilitate injuries. So I built my knowledge up from there. Like my first mentor was like one of the most knowledgeable coaches that that I've ever met. So I learned a lot there, and just I've dealt with a lot of injuries myself. So I've had to kind of learn my way through them, if that makes sense. And just trial and error. Like I've only been a coach for 5 years, but I've been in the industry, if you want to call it that, since I was 14. So yeah, and I'm interested. I love it. So, and we've worked with so many clients now. A lot of things do come up, and you just notice correlations of things.
Has fitness always been your life's trajectory? Like, is it always what you thought that you were going to do, or did you have other plans or ambitions? How did it turn out for you to be here where you're, coaching to such a high degree?
Yeah, literally not at all. And when I look back, I'm like, why did I not start that sooner or realize that I should? I think it's just because I went to a private school, and then we got pushed into university, and I did business at Edinburgh because I just knew I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to be controlled by someone else, but I didn't really know what business I wanted. And I think that was a problem. So I got the degree, but I've consistently trained the whole way and built up a lot of knowledge, and actually started a marketing agency after uni for almost a year. And it did okay. We didn't make much money off it. But long story short, we stopped that because of COVID. And I always kind of said, if that doesn't work out, I'll just do my personal training. I'll do that. And then I did that. And when the gyms opened, I had 12 clients straight away ready to work with because I'd built my Instagram up. And then it literally just went from there. So it really was not the plan. But if I'd started, I wish I'd started doing some online coaching at uni, to be honest. But anyway, we can't change that. But no, it definitely wasn't the plan. But I think the reason it wasn't the plan was because I don't know anyone else from my school that has gone into the fitness industry, not even personal training. It's not something anyone would ever consider because, personal trainers, people have this perception that you're never going to earn more than 30 grand a year. And as we know, there's a lot more out there than that.
Yeah, just recently had James on the podcast who, his parents were dentists. He went to King's College to do biomedical science and then decided that he wanted to, flip the script and go and do nutrition and do open up his gym. And this is something where you have to, I suppose, go against what the norms are that are expected of you. Yeah. Did you have to have difficult conversations or go through some turbulent times when it came to basically saying, I'm not going to follow in this path of higher education and instead I'm going to basically become a PT?
Yeah, well, I mean, I did do the higher, I got the degree, I got a 2-1 from one of the best unis in the world. So I ticked that box, but my parents never pressured me into doing anything. As I say, we just followed the trajectory. I think there was only about 15 people in my year group that didn't go to uni. So it was very unusual for you not to go to uni. And I've always just done what I'm wanted to do. My mum, she knows as long as I'm happy, that's the main thing. I'm always going to do what I want to do. So I wanted to do that business. It didn't work out. And I was like, right, what's the next thing? We'll go into this. And I was literally one of the busiest trainers in Newcastle within 6 months of qualifying as a PT. And I was earning really good money, as you know, in PT. And I think my parents, when they saw that, they were like, just go for it, then you're going to be okay.
That's really good. So you've always had that kind of support from your parents pushing you to just go and follow what you knew was right for you.
Not even a push, just almost just a green card to be do what you want. They never put any pressure on me, honestly. But again, because I've always wanted it myself. I think if I had a kid that was demotivated, I'd be like, you need to go and do something. But I've always done it. I worked through uni. I was running club nights at uni. I was running 2 club nights. I was training 4 times a week. I did freelance marketing on the side as well. I've always been doing loads of things. I've always made my own money. So I don't think they were ever worried, to be honest.
If you were to be speaking to someone who maybe didn't see that extent of opportunity and maybe they felt like they were pushed into a box, how would you encourage them to see, a little bit wider, that they do have the potential to take those opportunities? Because like you've said, you've, pushed yourself throughout your career when it comes to doing all these different, I suppose, elements of entrepreneurship. And then also you've trained really hard. So is that something that naturally is ingrained in someone, do you think? Or do you think they can learn it?
I think people are scared to, I know that sounds so cliche, they're scared to take the leap. But I mentioned YouTube before, I've watched people like Rob, Mike, Joe Delaney, people like that who've gone from nothing to doing something well. And I've always watched those videos and be like, well, if they can do that, then why can't I do that? So, and I've just never understood why anyone would do anything that doesn't make them happy. Yes, you have to go through the hard times, you have to grind through the hard stuff. But I did an internship in recruitment in my second year uni summer. And I was just like, this is just fucking shit. Literally, I actually figured out I was getting paid less than minimum wage, which I pulled the CEO up on. The only thing that was good for was structure and routine, because I prepped my meals, I went to work, I went to the gym at the same time every day. I was in really good shape, but I just hated it. I was like, this is not what I'm going to do with my life. So from that point, I was like, I'm going to do something for myself. And if I make half the money that my friends do in these corporate jobs, I don't care, because I just don't care. And I need to do something that I'm passionate about. I'm a terrible employee as well, because I'm like, why would I work harder to make someone else more money when I'm not getting any upside from that at all?
Absolutely. It's incredible how if you've got any type of skill, any type of desire or something, anything that can maybe help someone else in life, it could be like the smallest thing. But if you've got something about you, you can turn it into a business and you can follow that dream.
Yeah.
And you don't have to settle to being boxed in. But I suppose that's the easier option. And you've definitely not taken the easier option, as you've explained, by going all in on your PT and then building the business and then moving to Dubai. Like, what was that journey like for you when you decided to move out here? What was your motivation?
Yeah. And I think just going back to what you were saying before, like, I refuse to do something that I don't want to do. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, and obviously take that with a pinch of salt, but I just looked at people like, why are you going to work for a bank? And like if you want to work for a bank and you're passionate about it, go for it. But like when I message people from school, I don't really speak to that many people anymore. How's work? How's London? Fucking hate it, mate. I'm like, why are you there? Like literally. But the problem is when you're that deep and you're 27 and you're 28 and you're in a contract of your job and you're probably earning, like, living paycheck to paycheck in London, it's very hard to get out. And I don't envy those people. Like it would be very hard to leave that sort of job and that, that security. But what is security? Like, I think you've got more security working for yourself, because I can choose to get up and do the work, whereas they can fire you tomorrow, can't they? Like, what is a secure job? And I think I'm glad that I tried to do it straight out of uni pretty much. I think it would be difficult to do it if you do have a mortgage or you do have a kid or something like that. So it's not easy by any means, but I think you pave your own way, don't you? Like, everyone we know is doing well. Like, they worked really hard for that and they chose to do that. There's no one that gets to where we are by just doing random stuff and working hard for a week. Like, it's not the way it was. But I think the reason I moved here was just PT. I was full. Like, I always had online clients, but I was doing about 35 hours in the gym, which is a lot to do. And I was charging like 40, 45 pound an hour, which was a lot for Newcastle. Like, I probably could have built it up to 55, 60 over a 5-year period, but there was no one in Newcastle charging more than £50 an hour. So I was like, right, well, if I want to earn more money, then I either need to go to London or Dubai. Like, those are the two places that I saw fitness was like big back then. I wasn't really interested in America. So I was like, right, it's either London or Dubai. Like, I love the sun. Everyone that knows me, I love tanning. So
30 minutes
I was
every
like,
day.
let's go to Dubai. And like, again, I had watched the vloggers over COVID who had gone there, people in the fitness industry who'd gone to stay there because the gyms were open. I was like, that looks sick. It looks amazing. And it wasn't even because of the tax-free benefits, because I wasn't earning that much money back then. I literally just wanted to go and make more money in PT, and I wanted to have a better quality of life. That's all it was. And I actually never did any PT once I got here, because I just started with my first mentor, and then the online blew up. So, but yeah, I just watched one of Mike's videos when he moved, and I was like, why can't I do that? Like, it's possible, isn't it?
That is so interesting, because what you just said is giving me a bit of a flashback. When you said you watched everyone going to Dubai because the gyms were still open so people could come and train out here. And I remember that vividly. It was like maybe November, December time where we got put into another lockdown. And it was at that point that I'd like purchased the online PT qualification. I was still working my corporate job from home. And I thought, I have to like put my foot into the fitness industry. And I saw everyone going to Dubai, and I was there basically living on my older brother's air mattress, living on my older brother's air mattress in his 1-bedroom apartment to try and save rent money from living where I used to live in Bristol. And I was paying that to a business mentor to try and build up enough online clients so that eventually I could have that life of freedom. And I slept on that air mattress for like 9 months, invested lots of money that, I was trying to save through rent by staying with my older brother into this mentor, just in the hope that one day I would get to be my own boss. And it's crazy when we think back at it, but I guess those are the kind of sacrifices that people just aren't ready or willing to make. Or it's when you've clocked off from your 12 hours at your corporate job to then log on online to do your Instagram content for your business, to make sure that you're doing outreach to clients. Like, you are going to be working near enough 24/7.
Yeah. You've got to do it. And even now, like, yeah, we have much better quality of life now, but you never really switch off, do you? Like, and if you're not working, your team's working because you work to put the systems in place so they can do that. So, but at the start, like, yeah, I was absolutely relentless at the start. We obviously like making money. You have to if you're a business owner. But for me, it was the autonomy. It was the freedom as well of being able to not do what someone else is going to tell me to do. But yeah, like I worked in Anytime Fitness on the desk in Edinburgh for like £6.50. And again, I was just like, this is absolutely terrible. I was like, I need to do something about this. So when the gym shut, I moved back home and lived with my mum. And I was just like, and that's when I was doing my PT qualification. I was like, I'm going to post every single day on Instagram. And I've pretty much done that, give or take a few days till now. And that's what people don't see. And like, you know, it's the 1,500 posts on Instagram. It's going and videoing that, writing the captions and stuff. Like you see coaches now, they complain they've got no clients. They haven't posted in 2 weeks. Like, well, literally, what do you expect? Like, do you think people are just going to come to you because you put one topless photo on? Like, you could do that back in the day. You can't now. It's much harder.
And it's what people are getting from you, the amount of free value, free education that you have to put out there before someone invests into you as a person or as a brand. You know, the amount of time that people speak to me before they decide maybe to come on board, it can be 7, 8, 9 times before they actually trust that we'll be able to support them. And I think you've mentioned there about the fact that we never really, you never really switch off, and you have to work so overtime to the point where there is very little personal life. What do you think about work-life balance? Like, what does that mean to you?
I think, based on what we were chatting about yesterday as well, I think it's definitely important to have that and strive for that. But you've got to understand that, like, for the first probably 3 years, unless you're very lucky, you're not going to have that. And I think it's wrong for people to say that, to be honest, because like I had no balance in Newcastle. Like, as soon as I decided I was moving to Dubai, it was like 9 months before. I gave myself a lot of time. And like, again, going back to like, it was just a natural trajectory. It was like, right, we're going to Dubai now. We need to work harder to save money, tick that box. And like, I had no balance. I was PTing Monday to Saturday. If a client wanted to do a session on a Sunday, I would do it. Like, I never said no to money. That's just like something my granddad's always said to me. It was like, if you, like, you need to take whatever you can get, especially when I was saving up to move to a really expensive country. But like, literally back then, I would do my PTs from like 6 till 11. I'd come home, I'd have breakfast, I'd do my client check-ins, I'd go back, I would train twice, like I'd run, I'd lift, and then I'd be going to bed at 11 and getting up at 5 and doing the same thing. And like on the weekend, I'd be training for a marathon, I'd do 30K, I'd come home, lie there for like 2 hours, and then I'd do my programming. Like, it was just relentless. But like now, I don't work probably as many hours now, but like the work that we do is a lot more meaningful. Like, you're pulling the bigger levers, and you have a team now. That's the difference. Like, if I was coaching all the people in our program now, I wouldn't be able to sit here and do this. So you have to go through that period of like just absolute grind as well, I think.
100%. I couldn't agree more. It gave me, again, another flashback to you talking about doing that much work. That's what it was like when I was building the business. So I was doing my bodybuilding prep at the same time, wake up at 5 a.m. By 6 a.m. I'm on the Stairmaster, come home, shower, have prepped my meals to start work at 8. And then I'd go to the gym, train on my lunch break, come back home, work. And then in the evening, I do programming, Instagram content, editing YouTube videos. I didn't miss a vlog for like 6 months on my bodybuilding prep. And I just like, I bet the only time that I wasn't working was maybe 6 hours that I slept for 6 months straight.
Yeah.
And the reason why we do that is because the desperation to get where we want to get to, but also it's because it's a passion. It's because we truly love what we do. Now, with the work-life balance, it does improve as I suppose we've said, we're going to have bigger levers to pull now, whether that's a team, whether that's maybe we've got more knowledge so we can work harder and faster without it feeling like it's that much effort. I'm curious to know, what is for you the most important, let's put it this way, who were the most important role models that you took inspiration from? Because you mentioned your granddad, you mentioned some of these other YouTubers. Like, who were those people and why were you inspired by them?
I look up to my granddad a lot just because he's an incredibly hard worker. Like, he's just like, probably not working class, but like working middle class from Newcastle, Gateshead. And he was a printer, and he always just like, he told me like 1 month he got offered overtime to print the Euro, and he did 12-hour shifts for 30 days in a row. Like, obviously got paid really well, but he would always take the money if there was extra shift going. So I've always kind of had that. And like, yeah, I've always been a big saver as well, because you're just banking your future on you. You're banking safety in the future. So I like money. So I was motivated by that. In terms of like the fitness industry, I wouldn't say I really look up to anyone, to be honest. I take bits from everyone. There's not anyone that I would like to be fully like that, but I was like, when Mike moved, that opened my eyes to, okay, you can actually go to Dubai and do that. I love Joe Delaney. If anyone knows who that is, he's a bit of an older guy now, but like, I just love that mindset of like, cause he was like, fuck the 9 to 5, I'm going to go and do online coaching and travel and stuff. Taking a bit from that as well. That's what inspired me to do online coaching, I think. But now I more look up to like the people around me now, which is mad. Like, I was thinking about it the other day, like people I used to watch on YouTube and now friends with, coaches. So yeah, I look up to people in our circle who are doing well. But I think it's important to like look at people like, would you want to live the life they lived? Like, there's people that work 7 days a week for like, 10 hours a day. I wouldn't want to be like that person personally. So again, I don't know if that answers your question, but I look up to a lot of people in the industry. I take bits from certain people. I look up to really knowledgeable coaches. I'm like, wow, like I want to improve like my coaching standards and skills. Like Dan is a big role model to me. I look at people like Mark and Charlie who have built amazing businesses as well, and they've been in the game a long time. So just take bits from everyone, I think. Yeah. I'm not trying to be anyone else. And I think that comes across as super unauthentic if you do that. Like, I don't think there's another coach in the industry like me. I don't think there is. There's not another coach doing coaching corporate people who train people in the way we do.
Yeah. That's also just because it is uniquely yours, and it's like it's an extension of you. This is really important, I think, for people to listen to, which is you can only get so far when it comes to perhaps, parrot fashion copying what other people do, because ultimately if it's not your true passion, what you derive joy from, you'll only get so far.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a lot of people there who are business owners, who are perhaps other content creators. Have you been absorbing this content for a long time since you were young, or, did you fall into it? Because when I think about my inspirations and where I've got to, I remember quite vividly, it was during lockdown, or perhaps even a little bit earlier when I first started my fitness journey, and I found other fitness content creators on YouTube, like just searching on YouTube, like how do I lose body fat? And that's where it all started for me. But how long have you been, just absorbing all of this content?
Literally ever since I think YouTube obviously was a thing back when I started training. Probably it must have been like 2010. I think I got into the gym in it would have been 2010, 2009. And like the people that I used to watch back then, it was, I watched Pumping Iron so many times. I used to watch that. Matt Ogus, Guzman, Rob, Josh, genuinely people like that who've been in the game for a long, long time and learn a lot about, basic strength training from then. I don't really watch much like educational stuff now because I feel like I know enough about strength training. I more listen to like Huberman now, and I'm more interested in like working on the productivity and health side of things, because that's something that we can bring to our program as well. Like, our strength training programs are good. We don't need to progress them anymore, but can we bring more value in terms of sleep and hormones and stress and stuff like that? So I just absorb stuff all the time. I probably listen to 1 or 2 podcasts every single day if I'm in the sauna or in the gym. So yeah, just constantly trying to absorb that sort of stuff. But again, what you were saying before, like pick up all those tips from people and the way they do things. But I think if you don't do something that's truly authentic to you, then it really does come across. And I can name 10 coaches that I follow, and I'm like, you're just copying another one. And it's just a sellout. And I'm not willing to do that. Like, I know there's certain techniques that I could use with my content on Instagram that would probably make me more sales quicker, but I'm just not willing to do that because reputation is the most important thing. Like, do you want to make a quick buck now in the next 6 months, or do you want to be here for the next 6 years? And like, I know what I'd rather do. And like, I also want to bring in the right people to our program as well, because it's the coaches that are coaching the majority of them now. Like, obviously I have contact with everyone, but I don't want to bring a shit person into our program that's come through some funnel, like desperate marketing, who's going to be a headache for my coaches. I'd much rather bring in better people that are going to pay more, that are going to stay for longer, get a better result, refer us 10 people, and still be with us in 2 years' time. So I'm patient with it. And I think you do have to go through phases where you obviously push for financial reasons as well to grow the business. But I think there's a lot to be said for just continuing to improve your brand, getting a better quality of result. And like, that's what's going to lead to a better business in the long run, in my opinion. And I think you have to have a combination of both. You need to be pushing, but also building the brand too.
Yeah. To anyone who is looking for a mentor or a coach to work with, they need to know that they can connect with their values, but also that they're knowledgeable enough. And where you've said, since you can remember, you've just been consistently absorbing content and learning. that is through pure passion and through pure desire to get good at what you do. I think it's also quite poignant to mention that there's going to be a lot of people that maybe want to change their life, and their standard day might be, wake up in the morning, whack the news on, then they'll get ready, they'll go to work, they'll come home, they'll put EastEnders on or whatever they might be watching. And actually the bubble which they're in is just storytelling. Like, it's not expanding their horizons to learning more. And we've never been in such an incredible time in the history of this world where there is so much free value and so much free information that you can just go out there and absorb to understand this stuff. Like, this is how I got to where I am now. I clicked on one YouTube video, which was how to track your calories, right? That changed the whole trajectory of my life. And so when it comes to encouraging your clients, or perhaps just the way that you would educate them further, do you provide them extra resources or point them in the right direction? Or is that even something that you guys, strive to provide to a higher amount of detail? Because I see your content, I see your YouTube, like, you're always just striving to document as much as you can so that people can take a lot away from it.
Yeah, I think we certainly point them in the right direction of things, but at the same time, I think, again, it's important to understand who you're working with. Like, our people are incredibly busy already, so we don't actually want to give them too much to overwhelm them. Like, I actually want people to get a result in the simplest and most efficient way possible. But yeah, of course, like, we will recommend resources. We have, best podcasts to listen to, book recommendations and things like that. I built a portal, educational portal, anything that I think the clients would benefit from, I'll make a video on it, and it's in there. It's there forever. And I know that they don't all watch it, but that's fine. If like one person takes value from it, that's enough. But you've just got to give the client what they want. Like, if I've listened to a really good podcast and I know one of my clients would benefit from that, I'm going to send them the video there to watch it, definitely. But yeah, I just want to keep building, literally just build the best program possible for the people that we work with, definitely.
What are the most important character traits, do you think, for someone who were to be successful in the style of training that is this hybrid spectrum that we've spoken about? What personality traits do they need?
I think probably obviously a progressive mentality, and because with endurance training, you're probably usually building towards something, whether that's a race or something like that. But as I said before, I think it's just important. It's important to be doing cardio anyway, just for health reasons. Like, even if you were body composition focused, I think you should still be doing some zone 2 cardio every single week. Just so you're fit and healthy for your family and for the future as well. Like, it's literally going to make you live longer. Like, surely that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to understand that it's a journey and that there's not necessarily going to be quick wins. Like, if you're trying to derive all the happiness from like, oh, next week I'm going to be able to do this, then they're the people that maybe haven't tapped into the mode yet where they're like, no, this is going to be forever. Yeah. So do you experience that sometimes if someone's got a mentality where they want the result next week or they wanted it yesterday? How do you flip them to understanding that this is a process for their longevity?
I think, thankfully, because we've been doing it for a long time now, I think you actually attract the people. You attract the people that you want. And I think based off the content that I put out about myself, people know I'm very consistent. They know I've been doing it for years. So we don't really attract many people that are like impatient and want a ridiculous result in 3 months. Like, yeah, of course we can get someone in phenomenal shape in 12 to 16 weeks. But majority of people that join us, they know that, yeah, they're going to get a result in a quick amount of time, but they're also going to be doing the next thing after, and it's more of a lifestyle. And like, they're probably going to be part of the program for a long, long time. Like, our retention is really, really good. And because we don't do the 12-week photo shoot, we don't have like a naturally high churn rate. Like, we got people that will do 6 months and then they'll do another year and they'll lock themselves into that because it's a lifestyle, and thankfully they can afford it as well because it's the people that we're working with.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we attract those people that, yes, because they're high performers, they want progress. Like, if I'm working with a coach myself, whether it's a fitness or a business coach, if I'm not getting a result and I can't see where I'm going, I'm like, what's going on here? I'm not getting value. So, but they also understand that it's going to take time. Like, I'm working with a director at the moment who's got a wife and 2 kids. Like, we're progressing very quickly, but he knows he's not going to progress as quickly as a 22-year-old who's not got that stress. But he's fine with that because he's realistic and he's self-aware.
It's important to highlight, I suppose, your priorities in life, and everyone's got different ones. So it might be the case of your priorities, first of all, are your children, your family. And then after that, it might be your business. It might even be your business before your family, because if you don't have the business, how do you feed the family? And I think sometimes people aren't quite honest with themselves about who they're comparing themselves to.
Yeah.
that's something where it's really good that you've mentioned that, because everyone has a different starting position. Everyone has a different amount of baggage that they're carrying that will create friction to them obviously running closer toward their goal. So it will take a different amount of time. Now, I think it's important to be said, it doesn't change the fact that you still need to do the damn journey. You still need to invest in the journey, because ultimately it's going to mean that not only do you have longevity, but talk about the importance of accomplishment and how that changes a person by doing a process like this.
Yeah. I was just gonna say before, I think that's really interesting what you said about like, what's your priority right now? And I think that's a big thing with hybrid training, because, you know, you have like 12 months of training. You might be prepping for a marathon or half marathon for 12 weeks. It's not long in the grand scheme of things, isn't it? So, and you might accept that, okay, when I'm prepping for my half or full marathon, I'm not going to spend as much time with my girlfriend, but I've had that conversation with her. This is not me. I'm saying, for example, of someone, you've had that conversation with them and you've told them, look, I'm going to be doing more training. I'm probably going to be more tired. I'm not going to be in the mood as much. And as long as they're okay with that, and you know that you're willing to take that down a level for that period of time, then that's okay. And you might have a period of the year where you say, okay, I'm going to work more on my body composition, so I'm not going to be training as much. So I'm going to have more time to do other things. And that's where I'm at the moment. Like, I was going to do a marathon, but then I was like, you know, I'm going to be fucked. Like 3 days a week, I'm going to be sitting there just with no energy. Like, that's not fair on my partner right now, I don't think. And like, I'm not going to be able to do 15 high quality sales calls per week if I'm tired. And like right now I want to push my business. So it's like, I think it's about deciding where you want to turn up or down the dial on your life right now. And if you're saying, yeah, I'm happy with not socializing for 3 months, then yeah, go and do more training. So I think it's really important to understand what your priority is right now. And some people, they're in really stressful jobs. They're not going to be able to do all that. And I think for me as well, I've caught myself comparing myself to other people on like Instagram and YouTube who, you know, have got full-time videographers who are probably on some drugs, who are running and lifting every single day, who are not running big businesses because they're influencers, and they can do that. They can do 10 sessions a week, but it's not what I'm trying to do right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's completely realistic. And I think you've touched on something really important there, which is talking about how your journey or your goals work in harmony or affect those around you. And people will just nonchalantly say, oh, I'm running a marathon, or I'm going to do a marathon. But just like a bodybuilding prep or a really intense photo shoot prep, a marathon can ruin you. It is exhausting.
Yeah.
It is so intense. And so when it comes to having those conversations with the people around you as to what to expect, it's so important. And it's interesting where you've said, like, I don't necessarily want that right now to sacrifice, you know, my relationship and my business. So it's because you've got that awareness. But maybe to someone who doesn't have the awareness of what a goal like a marathon takes, how would you describe that to them?
I think for me, like, I looked at it like, you know, the actual total amount of time training to do the marathon, it wasn't going to be that much more actual time spent training. It was more, how am I going to feel after it? You know, if I'm going to do my long run on a Sunday morning, I'm going to need to get up at 5. I'm going to need to have really looked at my nutrition on a Saturday and carb loaded. That's usually when we go out and see friends. And then on Sunday, you know, I'm going to need to finish my run by 9 a.m. latest because it's so hot here. And then from 9 a.m., I'm going to be sitting at home, absolutely fucked, dehydrated because it's impossible to hydrate here. And then Sunday's a big day of sales calls usually, and it needs to be. And then, you know, I'm not going to make as many sales. It's going to affect my team and all that. And it was just too much kind of overall stress for what I wanted right now. And I'll definitely do it in the future. And, you know, for someone in a normal 9 to 5 that maybe doesn't need to be as cognitively alert as we do, they could do that and maybe they do it successfully, but that's fine. Like, that's their decision and that's my decision right now.
Yeah. And how would it affect, you know, a partner or your family?
I think it's just energy, because you're not probably not physically there. And I think that's what I've realized, that the difference between strength training and endurance training, the way you feel. If I go and do a heavy strength training session, I come out of the gym feeling amazing. Like, unless you've absolutely binned yourself on legs, like you come out feeling strong, like testosterone's high. Whereas, like, you know, an easy run, you're going to come out feeling great, you know, endorphins are flowing. But if you go and do a 30K run where you're doing, you know, a 5K warm up and then you're hitting 20K at your marathon pace, which for me was like close to 4 minutes, and then a 5K cool down, you've probably burned 2,500 calories. Your heart rate's probably been mid to high 170s for 2-3 hours. You're fucked. And going back to what we were saying before, like, that cortisol's so high, you're going to be stressed. You're not going to be in the mood for anything. So I think just energy and being present with people. And yeah, like of course people have done Ironmans and stuff like that, but like I don't want that right now.
Yeah, it's really good that you put that out there because it can be really glamorized. I think people
Yeah.
only see the like highlight reel on social media of like, oh, I ran my marathon, oh, I trained really hard for this, oh, it was amazing.
But they don't talk about all the personal stuff that went on through it. They don't talk about how, they didn't go out for a meal with a partner for months and stuff like that. And maybe they were having issues there, because why would you post on Instagram? Do you know what I mean?
No.
And I think a lot of people are naive. Like their favorite influencer is probably on gear. I'm not on gear. So my recovery capabilities are not the same as someone who's slamming test.
But that's because you and I are in this industry long enough to be able to look at someone and
Yeah.
know what substances, if any, that they're taking. But to most people who are looking at others on socials, they don't realize it's unrealistic standards. So this is something where I think it's important to touch upon as a natural athlete, what your recovery capacity might be like if you have been, as you say, comparing yourself to someone who is assisted.
Yeah, I think just if you're talking about hybrid training, like obviously those higher intensity workouts, like the high rock stuff, as I said before, cortisol is going to be through the roof. What do we know that happens when cortisol is elevated? When you're natural, your testosterone goes down. That's going to affect everything. It's going to affect your libido. It's going to affect your ability to build muscle. Like for men, testosterone being high, like the definition of it makes effort feel good when your testosterone's high. So that's going to make you want to work. Like you're crushing your cells, you're doing your numbers and stuff like that. It's going to make you feel good. Whereas your natural drive to do life will go down. And there's obviously a spectrum to that. Like if you stay on top of your nutrition, if you look at your sleep and all those sort of things, then you're going to be fine. But most people are not getting enough sleep, and then they're highly stressed from work. So I think you've got to look at stress management and stuff like that too. And that's something that I'm working on a lot. How am I managing my stress? Because even if we don't realize it, like as business owners, like we're just dealing with a lot of stress. Like we've got 6 people referring to us. We're probably having 100 conversations with different people. Like your natural stress is so high. Like to me, like if someone had asked me in the past, what does stress feel like? But oh, it's having an argument with my dad or something. Like that's not stress. It's just you're actually dealing with a lot of things. And then if you throw strength training, running in the mix, relationship stress, then it's a lot to deal with. And I think you need to manage that.
Yeah. I can definitely say from my perspective, I know that if I am to do an intense fat loss phase where I'm looking to get to a condition which naturally is going to compromise my cognitive function, my energy levels, I feel a sense of I am compromising on what I'm delivering to other people or what I'm providing other people, whether that's within the business, whether that's clients, or whether that is, in friendships, relationships. Like that's something which is really important to acknowledge. Like if you are going to commit to doing that, you're basically saying like, I'm going to be quite selfish here.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing, whether it's, you're getting into condition for a photo shoot, for a bodybuilding show, or whether it is you're committing to doing an endurance event, there is a price to pay. And that is something where you have to have those open and honest conversations with those around you as to what to expect. But then you also have to have like the supportive environment. And I think that's something particularly important for us to talk about when it comes to the type of clientele that you and I both work with, which is, a lot of them high achievers, working corporate, working as a business owner. They have expectations, to provide and look after other people. But actually, if they don't have that conversation as to what's about to change for them, how they're needing to prioritize themselves, if they've just been giving energy out, everything can fall apart very quickly and they won't be willing to make the changes because they've got so much backlash.
Yeah.
So how would you encourage someone to perhaps have a difficult conversation or lay out expectations for the changes that are going to happen in their life if they're starting a program where they're going to have to be a lot more intentional about how they're spending their time?
Yeah. I mean, I think thankfully the people that we work with, as I say, like I can't remember the last time we took someone on that was new to the gym and wasn't exercising. So for us, it's more just upgrading and maybe getting them to train a little bit more. So if they were doing 3 sessions or maybe 3 sessions inconsistently, can we get them to do 4 consistently? So it's not changing their life. It's more about like optimizing a few things. But I think the best thing to do would be to have a conversation with your partner and say, look, like I am probably going to be dedicating more time to going to the gym. I might need to get up a little bit earlier. I might need to go to the gym in the evening sometimes. I might not see you as much. I might need to be a little bit more selective with what I'm eating. Maybe like I was having a conversation with one of our clients the other day. Her boyfriend loves cooking, but he loves cooking these, glamorous high fat meals.
I also had this conversation with a client the other day.
Yeah. And I just said to her, why don't you just mention to him that maybe he can alter the portion size and things like that. And he was wanting to eat at like 9 p.m. and it just didn't really work for her. So I think you've just got to have the conversation. And I think if they have an issue with it, then maybe that's an issue with them. I think maybe there's some resentment there if you're trying to work on yourself, but your partner's not supportive of that. But hopefully they should see that, you know, you're trying to better yourself. So you're going to be a better person. Like you're going to be probably slimmer, more confident. You're probably going to have more energy. So they should be supportive of that. And I think it's different to someone who's competing in bodybuilding or doing a really intense photo shoot or something like that. Like we don't really work with those sort of people. So I'm not going to have someone in the gym and on the stepper every day. Like it's not like, so basically they're probably not dedicating that too much extra time to their routine.
Yeah.
I think it's the nutrition I think people fall down with mostly. Like when they're in a good routine, it's easy to meal prep, but when they're highly stressed in work, it's the nutrition that falls down first. So I think it's probably making better decisions in your food shop, maybe spending a little bit more money on your food shop, but you're probably going to save money elsewhere. You're probably going to be drinking less, probably going to be eating out less. So I think the conversation's key. Like I know Misha is going to do a little bit of a fat loss phase in October. I'm fine with that. We'll probably eat out less. Big deal. I don't care. Like, I'm supportive of that.
Yeah. It's something where those conversations might not go in the right way in case someone doesn't understand your motivations, I suppose. And I've had this conversation a few times with clients where they'll speak to partners and say, hey, we're going to start, well, I would like to start eating a little bit differently. I appreciate you cooking, but I need to change maybe the portion sizes or maybe the ingredients that we're using. And there can be offense taken to that. And the reason why sometimes there is offense is because sometimes people's love language is just cooking for others or providing things. And so it's having that conversation to be like, it's not that I don't appreciate what you're doing. It's actually, if you do it for me in this way, then it's going to enhance my life because I'll feel more energized. I'll feel more confident. I'll be a better wife, husband, whatever to you. So sometimes it ends up, you know, being a real clash of desires where when you can make sure that everyone understands how it's going to support everyone as a whole, it will be really helpful. And that's something where I know that you've definitely become a lot more self-aware as to, you know, the things that you're doing since obviously being with Misha, and you've had these conversations when it comes to like, okay, well, I need to make time outside of work to actually spend time with her. And so it's been interesting, like seeing that evolution, because I suppose it's something you didn't think about that much before.
No, like, yeah. Like even like I'm on my own for like 2 weeks and like, I'm like, oh, I'll just work till 10 p.m. It doesn't matter. But then I'm like, probably gonna have to think about maybe adjusting that somehow when she gets back. But like we had that conversation last night. I was like, do you mind if I work late? She's like, no. So I think, but then you've obviously got to factor in the nice things like the dates or whatever, and having the, like we're gonna try and have dinner together like most nights if it works out. So I think it's just having that balance. But going back to what you were saying before, like I think it's important to understand, like you can have those foods in your diet. That's the thing. Like those meals you like having with your partner, maybe just not every day. Maybe just say, okay, we can make that glamorous meal, but maybe we'll bank some calories for that. And maybe, you know, we'll make some sensible food swaps within that. Maybe let's not cook with half a kilo of butter and we'll use fry light instead. Like, I think that's the problem is people think that, oh my God, my boyfriend signed up to a fitness program. He's going to be a complete robot now. It's like, that's not how we coach people. Like, if you want to be on a strict meal plan, then yeah, it's probably like that, but that's not the way that we do it, is it?
Yeah.
Like I work with like business owners and people who travel for work, who are eating out of airports, who are going out for 2 or 3 meals a week in the evening with their clients and stuff. Like, do you think they're there with their Tupperware? Of course not.
Yeah, it's really, really important, because what you've basically said throughout this is you don't have to completely give up on things that bring you joy. You just have to find a way to fit it into your life. So it's a case of you can still do strength training, you can incorporate running, but you have to find that balance that's tailored towards the end goal that you're envisioning for yourself. And then on top of that, you can still eat all the foods that you love, but you might need to adapt things. And I liked you mentioned earlier about how, you know, if you maybe haven't done as much expenditure or if you've eaten a little bit more, that you then adapt moving forwards. And I think a lot of people seem to be like worried to do that because they think, oh, if I've eaten more today, but then I like eat less tomorrow, then I'm under restricting or I'm kind of putting myself into a difficult position and I don't want to build this bad relationship with food. But that relationship with food is just through the lens through which you see it. You spoke about it in terms of pulling a lever. So if I push this lever more on one day, then I have to pull the other one down a little bit so it balances out. But you're not seeing that in a way which is like an emotional attachment to you punishing yourself eating less the next day.
Definitely. And I think, you know, we went on a really long walk yesterday. I might eat a little bit more food today. But that's common sense. I always say to people, you know, before people had MyFitnessPal and before they track calories, what do you think people would do? Okay, today I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to run. I might eat more carbs. It's common sense, really, isn't it? But I think you need time and like time in the game to have that experience. Like, you know, and like I've always looked at things from the point of view of like sustainability. Again, it sounds a bit boring, but I got shredded from a photo shoot, but I was doing 20,000 steps a day. Do you think I'm going to be able to do 20,000 steps a day for the rest of my life? Of course not. So something has to change. And like, I think if you're a good coach, your program and like your team, it should be a reflection of you and the way you've built your physique. Like if you're a bodybuilding coach, the content in there, the way that you coach your clients is going to be, it's not going to be restrictive, but it's going to be incredibly regimented. You are going to be following a meal plan. You're going to be doing your stepper every day. But like for me, like I've always had a good time. Like even when I was younger, like if I wanted to go and get pissed on the weekend, I would go and do it, but I'd still be in the gym on the Monday. So like my program is like everything we teach in there is literally, I live and breathe that shit. Like every day, like doing your steps, you know, managing your time, doing all that sort of stuff, like putting your training sessions into your calendar across the week. Like I don't tell people to do that. I'll tell people to do that because I do that and it works. And I've got over a decade of experience proving that it works. But like that might not work for someone else. Like if you want to go and do a photo shoot, maybe that's not for you. You're probably not going to be able to eat out 4 times a week. Yeah. But that's not the people we coach.
But it's understanding what will be required. And this is something that I strive with our clients to make it really clear, which is, okay, this is the end goal that you want. There's 3 routes, A, B, or C, that we can go down. This is what it's going to take for either of these routes. Now pick one. And if they say none of these appeal to me, then I say that is not attainable, right? But at least they've gone, then they've got the information to decide what they're going to do. And I think also an interesting thing when it comes to hybrid training, and I'm surprised we haven't touched on it so far, we have slightly, but is the extent of the importance of recovery and actually not overdoing other life things. For instance, I had a client who was doing a hybrid style training, lifting 4 times a week, running twice a week. And then she'd kind of say, I've actually really, really struggled with my hunger massively and I'm feeling starving. And I was like, I wouldn't expect it with how much you're eating. Like I wouldn't expect you to feel this ruined. And then I find out that she's gone and done a 10-kilometer hike up a mountain on the weekend. Exactly. And that is where talking about fueling yourself and adapting the process is so important, because I thought, well, there's no wonder you're probably in God knows how much of a deficit on this day. No wonder you feel ruined and you can't train for the rest of the week. So I think actually the importance of, people think that bodybuilding style training, you have to be really regimented so that your output's exactly the same, your input's exactly the same. But to be honest, even when it comes to pulling those levers for hybrid training to allow for recovery and for performance, you have to be just as meticulous.
Yeah, if someone, again, going back to like the spectrum of what your priorities are, like if someone said to me, I just want to be in the most phenomenal shape ever, I wouldn't run. I would because when you run and you do that higher intensity cardio, your appetite goes through the roof. And I actually think it's very hard to find the balance of fueling properly, not overeating, and then staying in that condition, because I think most people think once they start running and doing hybrid, it's just a free pass to like eat shit. And you might know someone that is able to eat everything and stay in shape. But I actually put on like 4 kilos when I started running, and I stopped tracking my calories because I was listening to my appetite and I was overeating. So I think to distill it down to the basics, the best thing to do, if you have a higher output day where maybe you do need to run and lift, or you have a longer run or like a very intense interval session, just consume more carbs on that day so you have higher and lower days. But obviously you need to monitor it. And like, you know, if you're going to do an extra easy run, do not go and eat an extra 150 carbs because you don't need it. You don't need that much. Like I actually we have a nutritionist on board our team, and I was just like, you manage my nutrition for me. And I was quite surprised as to the little bump up in carbs that he gave me. And that's me being an experienced coach. So essentially allocate your carbs and your calories on the higher input and output days, sorry.
Yep. And just to touch on where you kind of spoke about sleep being something that is something you lean into a lot when it comes to your clients. I'm curious to know, when it comes to the sleep deprivation that you'll experience as a hybrid athlete, it tends to be the case that even if you feel like you've had a good night's sleep, like seven hours or so, but actually if you have a really, really high restorative amount of sleep, let's say 9-10 hours, good sleep, the performance difference that you feel is ridiculous.
Yeah. Definitely. And in the gym, strength. But if you're sleep deprived, I would say your heart rate is going to be more elevated on an easy run. So you might notice that, oh my God, my heart rate is like 10 to 15 beats per minute higher than it would usually be at this pace. It's probably because you're probably under recovered and underslept, a combination of that. But sleep's so important. I actually worked with a really good sleep coach myself earlier on in the year, so I learned a lot there. But I was actually doing a check-in this morning with a client who he doesn't get much sleep. Like he's a consultant in Dubai. Like he's very, very busy, and it's going to be patronizing for me to say just go and get 8 hours sleep. It's not realistic. So we just kind of have to accept that. But he said, this week my appetite's been really, really high. And I looked at his sleep, and he's been getting 5 hours, 15 minutes sleep. And like your appetite hormones, leptin and ghrelin, are going to be completely unregulated when you're underslept. So what I would say is if you can see you've had less sleep, just expect to be hungry, because it's going to be normal. And then you know why, and you're going to crave more sugary food. And then it's your decision as to whether to lean into that and overeat.
That's such
but
a
he
good
didn't
way
have
of
that
putting
knowledge.
it.
He was like, I've done everything else the same. My steps are the same. My training's the same, but I'm really hungry this week. And I was like, it's obvious, because you've been getting an average of an hour less sleep every single day.
Yeah, I really like the way that you put it. If you haven't slept enough, expect to be hungry.
Yeah, and I think if you know why something's happening, it's a lot easier to understand it. And with me, myself, like I know if I'm underslept, I'm going to be hungry, but I'm not going to go and overeat. I'm just going to deal with it. Yeah. And I'm going to be tactical with my meal placement as well.
Respectfully, that's also a similar line of what I say to our female clients when it comes to their luteal phase, because naturally with your basal metabolic rate increasing a little bit during that phase, you are going to feel a bit hungrier. But because of the hormone changes, you're going to feel more tired. Because you feel more tired, you're craving highly palatable foods. Exactly. But it doesn't change the fact that ultimately you don't need that extra food. No. You just feel shit. Just feel shit.
I think as well, it's something, again, I said to one of my other clients, to the same guy actually, and I think it's something that a lot of people would get a lot of value from, is like, if you are dieting and trying to lose body fat, then you need to accept that you might be a little bit hungry. You're not going to die. Like I've coached a few people like, oh, I'm just a little bit hungry. I'm like, because we're trying to lose body fat right now, like to change your body, whether that's put on weight or lose weight, you have to do something that it's not used to doing. So of course, when you are trying to gain, you might feel a little bit more sluggish because you're eating more carbs than you probably want to. And if you want to lose body fat, like I wouldn't go as far as saying, but like some people say, if you're hungry, then it means you're losing weight. And it's true to some extent, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's an upregulation of the hunger hormone, because that's your body saying like, oh, we're having to tap into our energy reserves right now.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll never forget my coach when I was doing my bodybuilding prep. I was saying to her like, okay, as we got leaner and leaner and leaner, I really started the hunger started to just become an underlying feeling. Like
you're used to it, aren't you?
Yeah, just you 24/7 are just ravenous. You're hungry all the time. But when I started to say to her, like, I'm feeling constantly hungry, and she just said, in a sadistic way, this is what to expect. Like, lean into it a little bit, because you're going to need to feel this hungry. To be at that level of condition for a female, which is so not, like, if you're a healthy, quote unquote, body weight, you shouldn't feel hungry or starving all the time. But definitely expect, okay, if there is a bit of hunger, just think of it as like, oh, the process is working a little bit.
Like it sounds cliche, but like it's meant to be hard. Like to do anything like worthy of any merit, it's hard. Like my mentor always used to say, it's like I expect something to go wrong every 2 weeks and I look forward to it. I'm like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, do you think you're going to double your revenue without it being hard? Like, come on. Like, you're not going to get yourself into amazing shape without having to work really hard.
Yeah.
But when you get there, it's a lot easier to maintain it, which I think a lot of people don't understand, which is a different conversation altogether.
Absolutely.
You have to do the hard work to get there.
Yeah. The fact that you will feel hungry as you're pushing or digging to get body fat off is not going to be the same case when you bring your calories up to maintenance and then you're, able to stay fit, healthy, and active, fit, healthy, and active because you've learned the new hybrid style of training and you enjoy it. So I think what I found, at least how my journey's transitioned to get to this point, is I did obviously the body composition changes that I wanted, lost a lot of weight, then did the bodybuilding prep, then realized that was not something that I wanted to do forever from a health and longevity perspective. And now it's this balance or this blend of being fit, healthy, strong, fast.
Being an all-rounder, isn't it?
Being an all-rounder. Yeah. And I've seen so many people go through this kind of trajectory. I don't necessarily know that many start off with it really early. I think it tends to be a chapter that people get to eventually. Mm-hmm. But this is something where I, regardless, think that it does have a place when someone is like ready to say, right, health forever is what I want, that this is without a doubt the type of training they should be doing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's about understanding where you're at in your life and then building the program off that. So as I said before, I don't want to run as much right now because I want to focus on other things. Like personally, I want to be a high performer in all areas. I don't just want to be an athlete. I don't want to be an athlete that trains well, looks good, and sits on the sofa being an idiot. Like I want to like crush my business and have a good time because that's what we work for, to be here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think just going back to what you're saying before, like I like it being hard because like if business and training and being in amazing shape wasn't hard, then everyone would be shredded millionaires, wouldn't they? So,
That is very true. Well, actually, that takes us full circle to the one final question I will ask, which is, you spoke about you like doing these hard things, and through keeping up with your strength training, through doing the different runs, and performing amazingly well at it, you're getting lots of accomplishments, right? So I think we've got to remember as a human what accomplishment does to us and how it makes us feel. Like, that is something which I'm so curious to hear about. What is your opinion and what is your thought process on constantly achieving?
What, as in like the importance of it? Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
I think it's like progressive overload, isn't it? You have to still be progressing, because if you're like, for some people, if they're not actually, the way I feel is that if I'm not progressing, I'm actually regressing. So I need to see improvement, and it's maybe not in the bottom line. It's not just the numbers. It's like we were saying yesterday, if you've had a great quarter of getting amazing results for your clients and the caliber of the people that you're bringing in, that's a win in itself, even if your revenue didn't go up. So I just want to have those small wins across everywhere. I'm still getting stronger in the gym. I am still getting better with my running. I'm getting better sleep. Like, you've got to be improving in all areas. But maybe you decide to try and really push one area for a bit of time as well. But I just think if you're not progressing, then it just must feel incredibly demotivating. Do you know what I mean? Because it's dopamine at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we chase that, and maybe it's not. It's unrealistic for you to be PBing your 5K every single week, and I wouldn't try and recommend doing that. But over time, you're looking at, okay, I did this run, my heart rate's a little bit lower. That means I'm fitter. That's a win. I'm ticking it off. I got 7 hours and 30 minutes sleep on average rather than 7 hours and 15 this week. It's just those wins, and like, as cliche as it sounds, it's like that compounding interest is massive.
Absolutely. But when you mentioned dopamine, like, that for me was like when the penny dropped, because dopamine is the reward center of our brain, is where we produce dopamine. And so if we're doing things that immediately hit us with dopamine, whether that's eating Krispy Kremes, whether that's just watching TV, scrolling Instagram, scrolling TikTok, there has been no process associated with getting that dopamine reward.
Yeah.
There's no hard work. And eventually you're going to end up just depleting your dopamine stores because you haven't done the hard work to actually deserve that feeling. So as humans, we are just wired to do work, to feel happy, and to keep progressing.
Yeah.
And that's why a process like this, committing to being fit, healthy, strong, to living a long life where, again, you're seeing progression in performance and also in business and your own personal ventures like you spoke about, is essential to literally living your happy life.
Yeah, but I think that's why there's very few people that can be in the shape or close to the shape they want to be year round, because then they're not patient enough to do the work. Like, there's no better feeling than being like, yeah, I fucking built this. Like, I know obviously people pay us to get them in shape, but you can't buy a physique. Like, that takes you years and years. And like, there's so little people that can have that feeling, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone's just chasing those quick wins. But if it's a quick win, then like, it didn't take much to get there, did there? It's not really a reward.
Absolutely. A fit and strong body can never be bought. Neither can a calm mind. It has to be earned.
And I think something we haven't even touched on is like, in the corporate setting, like, who are you going to respect more in a meeting? Like, who's going to get the job? Let's say everyone is exactly the same on every other level, but that person is clean cut, they're shaven, they're in shape, they have respect for themselves, and they're gonna be a better business owner or a better worker. Like, who are you going to give the job to? You're going to give the job to the person that's in better shape, not because they look good, because they have self-respect for themselves.
Yeah.
And they've worked for that. Like, even like with a lot of the people that I work with, like, the guy I'm thinking of, like, he's a consultant, like, really successful in his job, but he just had no energy. And like, within 2 weeks, he's like, oh my God, like, I crushed it in that meeting because my energy was just so much better. And like, my colleagues are looking at me differently. I'm like, yeah, because you look visibly healthier.
Yeah. A good body or a good physique is a sign of discipline. Like, on the evolutionary basis, it is a sign of discipline, hard work. And therefore, that's what we're drawn to, whether you're a male or whether you're a female. And also, let's not forget just the way that the world is changing now, the way that we present ourselves through social media and in person. It doesn't change the fact that if you're, let's say, wanting to build something for yourself, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's a business, whether it's some new form of income, you're going to need to market. And if you can't market, or you're too embarrassed to market yourself because you're not proud of who you are,
good luck, yeah.
what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think for guys, especially, like, you know, if I meet a guy and he's in good shape and he's got a decent amount of muscle and he's relatively lean, and like, I know what it takes to get there. Like, I've instantly have respect for him without knowing anything else about him. And I think, unfortunately, as well, like, if you want to move in those circles, like, a lot of guys will not let someone in if they're overweight, whether that's right or wrong, I'm not saying, but like, you know, to be around certain people that I think you do need to be in shape to how can I have your say, I think, because you do have that self-respect.
Yeah.
Like, especially in business, I think, as well.
Definitely. And it goes to show what you value, and you will always attract your tribe. As you've been saying, like, the type of clientele that you work with, you attract them because they are, you know, following your footsteps, just like you followed in the footsteps of the people that you were inspired by. So yeah, it's incredible, your journey and the work that you guys do. And to anyone who's interested in finding out a little bit more or to learn a bit more about hybrid style training, where can they find you?
So Instagram's the main one, Joe_is_fit with 2 T's. We have a lot of running and lifting content on there. That's where the client results are. Same handle for YouTube as well. It's more recent, but I do have, I think, about 100 videos on there now. And LinkedIn as well, Joe Gibson. So that's where we are.
Awesome. I'll link everything in the description box, but thank you so much for joining, Joe.
Great chat.